interesting events. I thought it would be good to just hop on and talk about what happened and what we experienced. But first, I wanted to tell you all thank you for all the shares of my last video about the Nativity in Bethlehem and the question of, is Jesus a Palestinian? That got so many shares and I got so much feedback. A lot of you had not heard of this concept of Palestinian liberation theology before. So we are going to cycle back to that in the future and break down a little bit more exactly what they believe and how they're operating and how it's affecting even the Western Christian community. What ideas people are taking from this that are unbiblical. So we are going to cycle back to that in the future. But first, I really want to lay a foundation on what replacement theology is and what fulfillment theology is, because Palestinian liberation theology is building off of that. So we need to cover those topics first. So we'll be working through those in the next few weeks, and then we'll go back and we'll look at what's going on with Palestinian liberation theology. But yeah, yesterday we definitely had a surprise. We had just had the Shabbat horn, and we were about to eat dinner, and then there's a siren. It took me a second because we haven't had sirens in Jerusalem in several weeks, months even, like since probably the second week of the war, we haven't had sirens here. And it took me a second to be like, that's a siren. And not only is it a siren, but it's extremely loud. So I scooped up my littlest. He was actually sitting on my lap. We were watching a show about Hanukkah together. And another daughter grabbed the dog and we all ran down, and the siren just continued on and on and on. And the way that this works is that when we have a siren, we run down to our shelter, and then we're supposed to stay there through the duration of the siren, and then for 10 minutes after the siren stops. So this was a very long siren. And we got down, and after it stopped, my biggest son, Aviel, he hit the timer. And then a few seconds after he hit the timer, we heard boom, boom, boom. We heard 3 booms in our location. Apparently, there's approximately 6 total. And they were very loud. In previous videos where I've talked about our siren experiences, I told you that they were the loudest that I've ever heard them, and they were rattling our shelter door. And these actually were louder than those. I thought the last ones we got were pretty much as loud as they could be in our neighborhood, but these were much louder. Like they sounded like they were exploding right over our house. And when we were finally able to get out and learn more about what happened, basically they did. The Iron Dome intercepted them just about a 2-minute block away from where we live. That's where the shrapnel was falling. So they were very close to our house this time. And they were all so loud, and the siren was so long that I was actually like, are we dealing with Hezbollah now? And I was somewhat relieved to find out that it was just Hamas and that Hezbollah had not gotten more involved than they are, because Hezbollah has precision missiles. So they're actually, if they were to get more involved, they are involved. They're in the north, we're having rockets come in from them and drones and different things from them. But if they were to get more heavily involved, then we would have more risk in Jerusalem because of the quality and caliber of missiles that they have. Hamas, they don't have sophisticated missiles. They have, they're not precision. So they basically just lob them in our direction and hope they don't hit anything belonging to their people. So, we don't get that many because we are up on a mountain. Jerusalem's on a mountain. And so, we're about 80 kilometers by air away from Gaza. So they have to use stronger rockets to get to us. But they have so many risks. We're close enough to Temple Mount. Temple Mount's right here in Jerusalem, and we're walking distance to Temple Mount where we live, and they're not going to risk Temple Mount. So there was actually a video though of the sirens on Temple Mount and the Kotel. So I think I'm going to show you these now. I'll show you how this looked. This This video is from, I believe it was Amir Sarfati. Both the videos I'm showing you are from independent journalists locally.
هيا يسروا هيا الله أكبر قولوا الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله هيا كمان واحد هيا الله أكبر ولله الحمد الله أكبر ولله الحمد الله أكبر.
Okay, so that was one. My littlest Yaniv decided that he was going to stop by. So hello to Yaniv. He was concerned about the rocket sound. I did tell my family, I said, I'm going to do live and I'm going to show these videos of the rocket. So you're going to hear some sirens. But it's still a little bit startling. He was probably the most afraid last night. After we got back up, he wanted to sit with me and just cuddle for a while. We always talk through what happened and how we know we're safe and that the Lord is our shelter. So we talked through this, but yeah, so you could see there that the rockets were being intercepted by the Iron Dome right over Temple Mount. That was literally right on Temple Mount. This war, the Hamas, they called it Al-Aqsa flood. The most holy mosque on Temple Mount was actually not the Golden Dome. It's actually the one with the black dome, and that's Al-Aqsa Mosque. And they're just typically not going to risk hitting their site. But you could see on the video that they were praising Allah, for the rockets. Like they were in praise of what was happening, which is just really sad and hard to hear. But they were running too, and they were not running from an Israeli strike. That was Hamas, guys. They put their own people in danger. I wanted to show you another view of the same siren from the Kotel, the Western Wall below, which is it's the foundation retaining wall of Temple Mount that the Jewish people use as a synagogue today and go pray. So I'm going to show you that one, so you can see how they were running. Oh, that's not the right one. Hold on. Thank you for your patience as I'm learning this technology. My daughter, Lydia, actually, she's been helping me learn how to do this. So thank you to Lydia. Okay. I think I need to turn it on. Yes, here we go. All right. This is the okay. Okay, so that wall that you could see on the left side of the screen, the very tall kind of plain open wall, that's the Kotel or the Western Wall, the Wailing Wall. Those are the three names that you'll hear it called by. And it acts as a synagogue today. It's the closest that the Jewish people can actually go and pray at Temple Mount, because the Jewish people and Christians were not allowed to go up on Temple Mount and pray. In fact, last time I was there, I couldn't even take my Bible. They searched my bags for my Bible, and I had to leave it behind in a locker. But only the Muslims are able to go up on Temple Mount and pray. So that wall acts as a synagogue, and it's actually a really beautiful space. So all the Jewish people who were down there praying, bringing in Shabbat with prayers. They're meeting as a synagogue, closing out Hanukkah, because Hanukkah, the last night was Thursday night, but the last day was Friday. So that was the very end of Hanukkah. And it was like Hanukkah ended, and then we had Hanukkah, which celebrates the Feast of Dedication, retaking the temple from the Greeks. That's what it celebrates. And then we had rockets right away. And it's not fun and games. It is scary. I mean, if you could see my little one when he came in a few minutes ago, he heard the sound and he came in because it made him afraid. And he asked me if I could turn it down. So, we're safe, but it's still disruptive and a bit scary. So yeah, that happened. But just as I was talking about how, it was the very end of Hanukkah and what that is, I did want to share about Hanukkah a little bit more with you all. So I had I have some photos to show you. Oops, sorry, wrong screen. I have some photos to show you related to what happened over the past week with Hanukkah. And let's see. Can you see it? Is it on yet? Not yet. Okay. All right, so here we are. This is our family. We celebrate the first night of Hanukkah together. And we did it a little bit early because one of my kids had a party to go to that evening. So we had to get out just a little bit early. I wanted to fix this so you only saw this image, and now I'm not seeing. Oh, here we go. Present. Here we go. Wrong one, though. Okay, good. Are we right? Y'all, one day I'm going to get really good at this technology, and it's going to be really professional and good. Okay, so this is us. We celebrated Hanukkah. We love Hanukkah. It is one of our favorite holidays. If you can see here, we have a Hanukkah. That is what you call the Hanukkah menorah right here. And this guy, my biggest Abiel, he actually made this Hanukkah. One year we went in the ceramic studio and we all made Hanukkot. And this is the one that he made. And so that was the one we started out with. And this candle in the center is the servant candle, and it lights all of the other candles each night of Hanukkah. It's the one that spreads the light across the Hanukkah. So Hanukkah is a really special holiday. I actually celebrated Hanukkah growing up with my best friend. So it's one that I have personal connections to from my childhood. And they were a Messianic Jewish family that attended our Baptist church. And this was before I knew that there was any such thing as actual Messianic Judaism or Messianic congregations. They just came to our church, and every year it was my best friend. So every year I got to go to their house and do Hanukkah. So it's really special to me. But Hanukkah it was really special this year because what it's celebrating is rededicating the temple after it had been taken by the Greeks and used for idolatrous pagan worship of all the Greek gods and goddesses. There's a statue of Zeus that had been placed there. And I think the thing is that a lot of people don't realize that it's really about war. What we're studying when we study Hanukkah as a family is the Maccabean revolt. And so what happened with the Maccabean revolt is that Israel and Judea came under Greek rule after it had been Persian. So it had been Persian, and the Jews came back in the story of Esther. And then Alexander the Great took over the Persian Empire. And then after he died, I believe what happened was the provinces each had different leaders, and they took over each area. So Israel and Judea became part of Greek province, and it was under the rule of Antiochus. So during that time, the Greeks worked really hard to Hellenize the Jews and to get them to participate in Greek culture in a variety of means, not just worship of the gods and goddesses, but also no longer being circumcised and participating in athletic events, just kind of disbanding their Judaic practices and their culture and their calling to be a set-apart nation for God. So during this time, a family known as the Maccabees, whose father and patriarch was Matityahu, he decided to begin galvanizing the Jewish people who were observant to come against this Hellenization process and the Greek authorities. So they launched into a series of battles, and it was a legit war. They had an army of about 10,000 men. So they were still the underdog. It was still much smaller compared to the Greek army and under-equipped. They did a lot of guerrilla warfare. They fought against the Greeks, and not only the Greeks, but Hellenized Jews as well. They took territory back, and they had everybody circumcised and began practicing correct Judaism again. Because during this time, under Greek rule, the high priest was a man named Joshua, who went by his Greek name Jason, and he allowed for the temple to become Hellenized, and he allowed for the pagan practices to happen in the temple. And Antiochus even went and sacrificed a pig in the temple, which is like the worst thing that could happen. So the Maccabees, they took back Temple Mount, and they rededicated it to the Lord. So Hanukkah actually means dedication. So they rededicated the temple to the Lord, and they found a menorah, and the menorah is supposed to burn day and night in the temple. And the legend has it that they had enough oil for one night, and it lasted for 8 days until they could get more. And so that is why we celebrate Hanukkah over a span of 8 days, and that we light the candle to remember that time, that Hanukkah miracle. So the story of Hanukkah is told in the books of 1st and 2nd Maccabees, which are not part of the canon of the Hebrew Bible or the Protestant Bible. They are part of the canon of the Catholic Bible, however. So I looked into this because I was just a little bit curious why they weren't in the Hebrew Bible, and no one knows exactly for sure. There's a few different theories, like one, the events, and this was written later than the last book of the Hebrew Bible. Another was that it wasn't all written in Hebrew, although there's some idea that originally it was, but it was translated into some other languages, and that they tried to, as much as possible, canonize books that were written in Hebrew and some that have some Aramaic. But there's some language discrepancies. Another idea is that it might have been because of some disagreements between the Pharisees and the Sadducees, but no one knows exactly why it wasn't canonized. In any case, it wasn't, but it was canonized by the early Christians as they were putting their Bible together. But then with the Reformation, it was not included in the Protestant canon. I actually have not read 1st or 2nd Maccabees because I typically don't read apocryphal books. But I think because of the tradition that we keep here, I probably should. That might be like hashtag goals for next year to read Maccabees. Have you read Maccabees? Let me know if you guys have read Maccabees and what you think about it. Yeah, so of course, if you can imagine the celebration of Hanukkah during a war, it was extremely meaningful. For us as a family, it was a little bit boring. I hate to say. Usually when we celebrate Hanukkah, because the Maccabees were from the town of Modi'in, we will go to Modi'in, and we will either go to a Hashmonean ruins and explore the ruins, or we'll go to someplace like the Modi'in Museum and see the Hanukkah exhibit that they have set up there. And then we also do something related to Temple Mount. Like last year, we went to Temple Mount, and we did the tunnel tour at the Western Wall Foundation, which was just incredible. But we always do something related to Temple Mount and related to Modi'in. But this year, my husband's vacation didn't overlap with my kids' vacation, and I actually felt a little bit uncomfortable taking them down to the Old City by myself. We haven't had any sirens until last night, but you saw the video, and I just didn't feel good about running with 4 children by myself in the case that was to happen. So we didn't do that. It also rained a lot. Yeah, it rained quite a bit. But, one thing I want to point out, though, about Hanukkah that's interesting is that even though it's not in the canon, the Maccabees isn't in the canon of the Hebrew Bible or the Protestant Bible, Hanukkah is actually the only holiday that the Jewish people celebrate that is mentioned in the New Testament, but not the Old Testament. So I wanted to show you where that is. I think this is just a really fun fact. Go back to our family photo while I open it up. Okay, here it is. So it appears in John 10 and verse 22, where it says, and at that time, the Feast of Dedication took place at Jerusalem. It was winter, and Yeshua was walking in the temple in the colonnade of Solomon. So the Jews gathered around him and said, how long will you keep us in suspense? If you are the Messiah, tell us plainly. Yeshua answered them, I told you, and you do not believe. The works that I do in my Father's name bear witness about me, but you do not believe because you are not among my sheep. My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me. Okay, I think that's enough to read. Yeah, so right here we have Hanukkah. It's the Feast of Dedication in John chapter 10. And because, of course, Hanukkah means dedication. So that's what they're referencing. And, it's interesting just to think about it in a real practical way. It was winter. It's winter now, and it rains a lot. So to think about Yeshua being there, walking in the temple in the colonnade of Solomon in the winter, where maybe it was sunny. Today we're having a beautiful sunny day, but most of Hanukkah, it rained. And when it rains, it's so cold. Sometimes we get ice in the rain. Sometimes it's horizontal. It's very windy. So just to think about the weather and the temperature he was experiencing there. And in the Messianic community, we often talk about the servant candle being a representation of Yeshua. So here they are during Hanukkah asking him if he's the Messiah and to reveal himself. And he's discussing this with them. And, this was a time also when they were celebrating the Maccabean revolt from Greece, and they're under Roman rule at the time too. So if you're the Messiah, are you going to do what Judah Maccabee did? Like this is kind of what I would imagine the whole discussion was kind of oriented around. So that's just an interesting fact for you all, that Hanukkah shows up in the New Testament, but not the Old Testament. So the IDF had a lot of fun with Hanukkah too. We'll just go look at some of the things that they did. Okay, so this is in Gaza, and this is actually Palestine Square in Gaza. If you all remember, on October 7th, the terrorists, they took prisoners and bodies of people that they had murdered and even stolen IDF equipment, and they paraded around Palestine Square in Gaza with cheering crowds of quote unquote innocent civilians cheering what they had done. And this is what the IDF did in response. They basically flattened Palestine Square, and they put up a flag, and they reminded everyone of the Hanukkah story. I'm not a pacifist. I believe this is a just war, and given the way that they responded, I believe that this was a fair means of reminding them who they're facing. And so I was in support of this, and this actually brought me a little bit of joy and just further confidence in all that the Lord is doing. So morale has definitely been high during Hanukkah. They also did this on the last day. I'm not sure how they did this exactly, but they created a Hanukkah in the sky. And if you look at it and count, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then the one that lights the others. So you can see all of the, where am I? You can see there all 8 candles lit on the last night of Hanukkah over Gaza. And this was just a reminder, in the past when other nations have come against Israel, there's come a day when the Lord has been just and restored his people. This is the story that we see through the whole of Scripture, that the nations will attack Israel, and then the Lord might allow this for a season, but it's always only a season. He always comes back and shows victory on behalf of his people and for the sake of his holy name. So, yeah, continue to stand with Israel. I think next time we're going to talk a little bit about some messianic prophecy in light of Christmas and relate that to refuting replacement theology, particularly fulfillment theology. So you guys have a really good few days, and I will see you soon.